mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And right now I'm 33 years old, and at this point in my life, this is something I really believe in dearly. I believe as human beings that we need to hold ourselves accountable mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And training jiu-jitsu in particular, you have that opportunity to stimulate and grow in all four of those, mentally. And it's not just for jiu-jitsu. As a human being, whatever you're doing out there to stimulate your mind mentally, learning, this is good. Same thing physically, keeping yourself physically accountable, working out, eating right, obviously is very good. Emotionally, having healthy relationships, and spiritually. And spiritually can have a couple different meanings, but in how it pertains to us as jiu-jitsu students, when you come to class and your instructors are teaching you the art, you're being stimulated mentally. And it doesn't stop there. You go home, you read, watching videos, whatever you're doing. As a human being, this is good for you, whether you're doing it through jiu-jitsu or another means, Physically, we get that at the academy when we spar, that physical stimulation, pushing each other on the mats. Emotionally, this is one that, I don't hear too many people talk about, but it's very important. If you just come to the academy and you're just there to spar or just learn technique, typically, in my experience, those people don't last long. The guy who comes to the academy and doesn't talk to nobody, is not engaged with anybody, no one knows their name, they don't have a longevity in the academy. So every time you come to the academy, crack a few jokes, smile, shake hands, have a good time. This is good for the human experience, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard if you had a newborn baby and you just fed it and you never, engaged with it, you never held it, you never talked to it, that the baby could potentially die. I don't know if that's true. Maybe one of you can look that up and give me a reference on that. But I've also heard that solitary confinement is a form of torture. When in jail where prisoners are alone for a long period of time, no interaction, that this can drive a man crazy, And what I sometimes remind my students of, if you watch that movie with Tom Hanks, where he's on the island, Castaway, I think, he didn't have no one to talk to in that movie. What did he start doing? He started to draw a face on the volleyball and start talking to the volleyball. And we'd probably do the same thing. We take that for granted. Every day we're talking, interacting to some extent with somebody. But if you never talk to anybody, you're probably gonna start talking to yourself. So at the academy, when you have an emotional stimulation there, mentally with the technique, physically pushing each other in the sparring, emotionally engaging with each other. Spiritually can have, I have a couple different meanings myself. I believe personally that, one of our purposes in life is to reach our full potential as a human being, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I believe when you are making gains, when you're getting better mentally, physically, you learn whatever it is. You're reading a book. You got a degree at the college. You're learning. This feels good. When you do the opposite, if you're like on the couch playing video games all week, not doing anything, sometimes people they regret that. They feel bad about that. Or physically, if you're not making any progress, if you're abusing yourself physically, maybe someone's binge drinking or abusing drugs or abusing food or whatever. Sometimes you have a hangover effect, some depression comes with that. I believe that's kind of like spiritually, it's kind of like a sign that that's not good for you, But again, when you're working out and you're making improvements, you're losing weight, you're making gains, this feels good. So I believe spiritually, this is a sign of this is part of life. We need to make the most out of it. We need to try striving to reach for our full potential. And emotionally too, I came across a study, it's supposed to be one of the most in-depth studies that we have access to, that basically said the people who live long, happy lives are usually the people who have healthy emotional relationships. So I believe spiritually, from that point of view, it feels good to make progress mentally and physically and emotionally, I think spiritually this is good for you. I believe this is part of the purpose of life. But if someone doesn't want to adopt that or subscribe to that perspective, another interesting thing regarding the spirit is the team spirit. A lot of people use the influence of a team, or some people have like they get motivation, or they get a drive to do well because they want to represent their team. Some people have this spiritual stimulation at home. If you have a strong family, you have a strong connection at home, and that might be fulfilled there spiritually. You're part of a strong family. Some people don't, especially if you look with our youth. Sometimes they're out there joining gangs. They don't have a spiritual connection. They don't have a team. Sometimes they're looking to fulfill that on the streets, But you get that at the jiu-jitsu school, mentally with the technique, physically with the sparring, emotionally with your relationships, and spiritually embracing the team spirit, trying to use that to help motivate and encourage you to reach for your potential. You'll see, I know I have a lot of friends who are professional athletes, professional fighters, and some of them find that motivation and drive by trying to represent, just trying to make their team happy. So just something, interesting food for thought, something to think about, because as jiu-jitsu practitioners, you might be training for years and you don't even realize why you're happy. You're training, you're happy, life's going good, but maybe you look a little bit closer, these might be the reasons why you're happy. You're getting a good workout physically, you're learning an art mentally, you have good relationships emotionally, and you'll see a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community like representing their team on their shirt. Some people are getting their stamp on their body and all kinds of things for, a spiritual stimulation. So I believe it's a really interesting package that we have as jiu-jitsu in the jiu-jitsu community. It's not limited to just jiu-jitsu. Someone might be training karate and get the same benefits there, or another martial art, or something else in life, But I think jiu-jitsu is one of these unique paths that can really help develop you to your full human potential. I hope that was beneficial, and I wish you the best.